all kind of thoughts to grow in our heads and in our hearts. All kind of things. Being confused, being hated, jealousy, being impatient, unbelief. And guess what? It's understandable. These things happen in life. As in my case of dealing with some things personally just on 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it doesn't make it right that these things or kind of thoughts take residence in our head and heart. And they must be addressed immediately before they are taken out of control. The purpose of God being in our life as a director, a spiritual guider, is that all that appears to be crazy and of all of the things that's happening in the world, you have to remember that God doesn't have a problem knowing his plan for you. God is looking to his word for your name in there. Yep. God does not see my problems or yours or no one's to this matter. God only sees his word. And when he's looking at his word and he sees Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens him, and he sees Santita there, he waves to Santita, hey, Santita, hey, God, I got this. I'm gonna get through this because what your word said. I'm gonna walk in this thing. God says, Santita, that's girl. God knows exactly who we are and have our haves and have not, and will never lose track of who you are or who I am according to his plan and how he has this thing planned. A personal message with Santita's name on it and with my name on it. Every day and every time you keep his word in your mouth and in your heart, watch this, the peace of God will surpass all understanding. Kind of sort of like this, Santita, what you can't control, stop controlling it. I'm talking about a personal walk now, because some of God has given assignments, Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, Santita Jackson with the morning show. Some of us, David, some of us, God has given assignments to. We look at things differently. Martin Luther King had a passion for God's word, and that's what he was living for. I'm doing the will of God. And some of us, he's given these assignments to that's outside of the single walk with God. Those I'm talking to right now, that God has not given big positions to and things to do. You have a responsibility where you are, that everything that you waited patiently for and everything that I can wait patiently for, God made a promise that he can give it to us. And not the way I wanted it, Santita, but the way I wanted it, God's way. In other words, God, I want everything I want, but I want it your way, because the word of God says the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich and addeth no sorrow with it. Santita, as I close, God gives us a strength as a fighter of his. And it's at a mark that we keep our eyes on. Philippians 3:14 says, I press toward the mark of the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. 15 says, let us therefore, as many as be perfect, be this minded. And if anything be ye otherwise minded, God shall reveal it to you, because you will receive every promise that God has promised you, sometimes even when we don't even deserve it.
And, we're all functioning on grace. Amen to that.
Yeah.
That's why, it's always been, I believe in great, saying, I'm blessed and highly favored. But the fact is, we've become takers from God instead of givers, and that for me, that for me is problematic. It's like, what shall I render? That's what we used to say. Now we just talk about all the gifts that God's going to give us. God ain't Santa Claus. There are some rules that you need to follow. And so, it's just a thought. But how can we worship with you, and how can we get that food once again? Because we need it. We need it. We need it.
Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7, and every Wednesday from noon till 2 for the seniors. That's every Tuesday. GraceCentral.net, GraceCentral.net. You could just come by 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, and we'll make sure no one is turned away. So every Tuesday, please, and as a matter of fact, we're excited. Santita, we love the crew, the volunteers. Oh my God! You said we've become takers and not givers. When I said, it's so true.
Absolutely.
And what's is and although we do honestly desire things, it's probably one of the reasons I'll be teaching on Sunday that we're not receiving a lot of his promises because because in order to receive from him, we got to give.
We're out of order.
Yep.
And so you know what?
Absolutely.
Let us get in order. Be ye also ready, which means you got to get ready. That's what our grandparents used to say.
Yep.
I love you, Pastor Darius Brooks, Grace Central in Westchester, Illinois. Sending you so much love. I got Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse. So grateful to have you with us today. What's on your mind as I read about, I was looking for 10,000 steps. They said now all you need is 4,000. But the point is you need to get moving. But what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Santita. So I just want to provide a reminder of, I know we talk about prevention being better than treatment, but what that means is understanding what's on the horizon. And so similarly to how, you don't plan for your bills when you get your check, you actually plan for how you're going to spend your check before you actually get the bill. And so I'm saying that to say that right now we have RSV, COVID-19, influenza, enterovirus, and some other cocktails of nasty viruses that are on their way. Some of these things are attributed, to the fact that, yes, the weather is going to change. As we know, there's been like some up and downs in regards to going from extreme high temperatures to extreme low temperatures, and the body's ability to be able to adjust. Of course, diet is a part of it, but just reminding people that whatever you choose to do, whether, let's say you get the flu vaccine, I get the COVID vaccine, let's say whether you get any kind of vaccine or you just decide, hey, I'm going to take some lemon gingers, it's just to understand that there are 3 cocktails of illness that is possible, right? Meaning that it's not just, because I got COVID-19, I can't get flu, and because I got RSV, I can't get flu. It actually means that if you get any kind of illness, even if it is a common cold, because your immune system is down and your white blood cell count is up and you are ill, it makes you more susceptible or prone to getting those other illnesses, which means that it is possible for you to have flu along with COVID-19 or have COVID-19 and RSV. This is especially important for older adults as well as it is for children. So I constantly say that for individuals that might be healthy, that might be able to weather the storm of one of these illnesses, is to make sure that you are keeping others around you safe. Because while your body might be able to ward off that illness, somebody else's body may not need to. So with that being said, there are just
no. I just think it's important to emphasize that you can have these illnesses or these viruses simultaneously, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. So you can have the illnesses simultaneously, and you can end up and think one is detected and the other one is not. As you can see, even with COVID-19, we saw COVID-19 and people with pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you have one respiratory illness doesn't mean that you can't have another. And in fact, having more than one respiratory illness, it does increase your risk of death.
Everybody take care of yourselves, take good care of yourselves. And, what do you make of this new news, this new data that shows that instead of getting 10,000 steps a day, that 4,000 steps a day can help to optimize your health? What is our takeaway from that?
So are you mentioning just in terms of what to do to optimize health?
Mm-hmm. I mean, because, now, people, you get the watches, you get all these devices, how many steps have I taken today? And we're all aiming for 10,000 steps. But, I just read in the Washington Post that they're like, no, all you need is 4,000 just to kind of increase your health and get things moving. I have one more minute.
So I would say the jury is still out on that.
Okay.
Just understand that sitting is the new smoking. And so if you are doing way more sitting than you are moving around, and just understand that there are risks. And then the other piece of that is to take into account is if you're doing 4,000 steps at the beginning of the day, but then you're sitting for 8-9 hours, that's still a heck of a risk because you're still sitting there with blood clots. and different things. And so I think there has to be more context around those 4,000 steps and what they mean. Same way you'll hear someone say, is it best to eat 2 big meals a day or is it best to eat 6 small meals a day? So it's tomato, but it does make a difference in regards to how people go about things.
Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. We love you, Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Please follow her on social media so that you can get the latest and the greatest in information. Remember, prevention is better than treatment. Let's talk about getting a credit card. How many of you can't not get a credit card because your credit's not strong enough? Well, you can't actually get one. Yeah, a credit card, not a debit card. You don't want to use your debit card except to get your money out of the bank. Let's talk with David Hochberg about that on the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. How are you, Dr. Knighton?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. I can tell you, getting a little bit of sleep meant a whole lot.
Oh, it does.
Oh, yes. But oh gosh.
That it does. Absolutely.
My goodness. Hold on one second. I'm trying to pull up something. Oh boy, I got a lot of little things I need to do today. Okay, here we go. Okay, just give me 1 minute, Dr. Knighton. I'm trying to send something to myself because I need to see it on a bigger screen. It was okay when it was on a small screen, but now I need it here. Woof, 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 woof. Just doesn't stop, does it? But how are you doing otherwise?
I'm doing great. I cannot complain.
That is important.
Cannot complain. Yeah.
Oh, I see what I did. Okay. Girl, got me talking to myself. Yes. What is that? Okay. Yep. Okay. I've got to get you and Dr.
Mr. Hochberg's on.
Okay, great. David Hochberg, how are you?
Good. How are you? I'm getting into a better cellar. I'm going upstairs, so I'll sound a lot better in about 20 seconds.
Okay, very good.
Hang on.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Hang on.
Okay. Let's talk about these secured credit cards, Dr. Knighton.
Okay.
Because I never knew what they were, quite frankly.
All right, this should be better. Okay.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right, I can hear you now. That's great. Okay, just
Great.
remember,
Let's
I can hear everything in the background.
Yep, no, I'm in my office, closed door.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, someone who's listening is Dr. Shanina Knighton. She's an infection preventionist, registered nurse, college lecturer, Case Western Reserve. Brilliant. And perhaps she can take this information to someone else.
Sure.
This is David Hochberg, Dr. Knighton.
Oh, Knighton. I'm sorry.
Good
morning, Dr. Knighton.
Oh, no,
I'm good. Sorry for mispronouncing your last name.
That's okay. Listen, I always hear the advertisement, so I know that you're the guy to come see about mortgages and houses.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Him? Did I get it right, Santita?
No, you are tough, girl. Come on, but look.
Okay.
Like
she's a doctor. She's never wrong.
No, well, no, I tell you what she is brilliant. That I know. Yeah. She is brilliant now. And if she
30 seconds
comes to a conclusion that's incorrect, she will say it and she will work it out. I've just not heard her be wrong yet. So much for that. I'm just telling you.
That's a good track record.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a character issue. If she's wrong, she'll say it, but I just
10 seconds.
She ain't been wrong yet. So, a heck of a track record. But stand by.
Stand by.
Yep.
Oh, Shanina, I'm going to show you these shoes during the commercial break that I got.
Change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Thursday, August 10th, 2023. Wow, where's the summer going? Well, I tell you what, any day above ground is good to me. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We'll be talking about President Trump, former President Trump. You know, it's interesting. The judge called him Mr. Trump in one of his hearings. So it lets you, is that indicative of where the judge is going to go? Well, we'll see. But the question is now, Robert Wright, the former labor secretary under Bill Clinton, said, you know, what about him going to jail before the election? How would that work out? I mean, it's a possibility because he was given certain restrictions that he apparently has violated. You know, you're not supposed to speak on this, not supposed to talk to so-and-so. So we're going to talk with Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee about that because there's a legal fallout and there's a political fallout. And then, of course, we'll be talking about renting and the economy, the inflation, which now is rising again after 12 months of decline with Dr. Max Wolf. But, of course, we are talking with David Hochberg, who helps us to hold on to our homes. I urge you to call him at 866-594-HOPE. 855-DAVID, 56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, because his mission is to help you to hold on to your home. We're going to talk to him about secured credit cards. But first, I want you to know that if you are a first-time home buyer, which means if you have not owned a home, right, David, in the past 3 years, you might have owned it 4 years ago, might have owned a home 5 years ago. But in the past 3 years, in this time of crisis, if you've not owned a home, you need to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit them at 56david.com. They're your trusted local lender. And as Dr. Shanina Knighton said, hey, if you want to hold on to your home, if you want to buy a home, you got to talk to this guy. Well, first-time home buyers, we're seeing a decline in first-time home buyers. More and more Americans cannot pull together to the money to own homes. It's down to 26%. It was 34% the year before, and the numbers were much higher. In fact, that was something that you look forward to, but more and more Americans are saying, I can't even pay rent, let alone get a home. But you know, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Team Hochberg, they've been concerned. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac want to turn these numbers around, and they're incentivizing first-time home buyers with substantially lower mortgage rates. So if you're in Chicago, for example, if the total household income is below $105,700, you might be eligible for this program. You might be, but you got to call 855-56-DAVID so you can find out, or go to 56david.com. Call Team Hochberg to see if you qualify for these low rates. But also, if you think you are looking at foreclosure, if you are looking at any problem with your home, if you want to buy that house or that building, that 2-flat, that 3-flat, that 4-flat that's down the street, and you don't know how to pull the money together, they can help you to do that. They can help you to work out a plan. So I want you to call them at 855-56-DAVID. Maybe you want to buy the lot next to you and create an urban garden. I don't know. But the people to help you to do this, to figure out how to buy land, how to buy property, it's Team Hochberg, 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Let us get into creating multi-generational wealth. If you own a home, more than likely your children will own a home, and their children, and on and on. So come on, everybody, get a piece of this American dream. Yes, it can still happen. And I want you to call Team Hochberg because they're here to help you at 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Was that kind of accurate, David Hochberg?
That was spot on. I'll tell you what, somebody just emailed me a story from Bloomberg this morning that I haven't had a chance to read while I was on the treadmill, that said that the Minnesota St. Paul area has essentially beaten inflation and has curbed the housing crisis that we have down here in Chicago with inflated prices by getting together with local government and issuing permits to do a huge building boom up in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area and encouraging Black, brown, white people, every demographic to buy homes. And they've essentially capped inflation, cut inflation off by flooding the market with supply. So I'm going to dig a lot deeper into that. I'll forward you the article because I'm just like, what is this?
Well, I'm on AM 950 radio up there. And then I've got
I know you are.
Pastor
and that's
McAfee.
why I brought it up. Yeah.
Pastor McAfee and Spike and Gary Hines and so many of our allies are there, and they are looking to help create homeowners, because indeed that is supposed to be one of the worst places for Black people to live in the United States. Just economic opportunity seems to elude us. But let's talk about this. I have a friend who went into bankruptcy. I mean, she didn't mismanage her money. She was just dealing with a lot, divorce and on and on and on. These things happen. They just happen, everybody.
Sure.
But she was coming out of it. She's a hyper responsible person. And she pulled out something. This was like, oh my gosh, like 30 years ago. She pulled out what appeared to be a credit card. And I was shocked. And I was like, how do you get a credit card? You've been bankrupt. But it turns out it was a debit card. And I said, oh, okay. I, not really... I wasn't familiar with that, even though I had a bank account and all of that, but I had a credit card. But now it's very difficult for a lot of people to get credit cards because your credit is not strong enough, And so you're saying that there's something called a secured credit card, which is something that you have created. And I want to know what a secured credit card is, and who is anyone eligible for it? I mean, just first of all, what is a secured credit card? Is it a real credit card?
Sure.
Is it a debit card? And should you use how should you use your debit card? Because many people use debit cards as credit cards.
Yeah, I'll answer the first question. I'll kind of answer. You kind of threw about 4 questions at me there, so I'll answer them in this order.
Because you can answer them, David.
Debit card. I've been doing this with you long enough to understand. Just do zone defense. So here, I'll answer every single one of them, but I want to address the debit card system first, if I could. Sure. A debit card is tied to your checking and savings account that enables your listeners to buy goods and services based upon the current balance in their checking and savings account. Okay, so instead of checks, the debit card has replaced checks. Because when you go to buy goods and services, you just tap your debit card, swipe your debit card, whatever, and the money comes directly out of your checking and savings account instantaneously, immediately, and goes right into the merchant's bank account. Okay, good. That's what a debit card is. The challenge is that there are 47 million Americans right now who either have no credit or are credit invisible. There are 26 million Americans that have zero credit, and there's 21 million Americans that have unscorable credit. What does that mean? That means you either have no credit or whatsoever, or your credit profile is so thin that the 3 major credit repositories, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax, don't have enough data, background, history to give you a credit score to determine your credit risk and take out future debt. Okay, that is a major problem. And you've got listeners out there right now who are walking around who have no clue about this. Okay, there is a gentleman right now on the treadmill, Army veteran down in Texas with his wife, who called me after the last time I was on, who's been using his debit cards, been trying to establish credit, has co-signed for his son's car loans and apartments, and the kids have defaulted on the car loans, moved out of the apartment, and left parents in complete shambles. Okay, so they are having trouble getting credit, similar to your girlfriend who came out of a bankruptcy. Okay, because you have got bad credit. New creditors are going to have a very tough time based upon your past credit history, issuing you new credit if you haven't shown a propensity to make payments on the credit that you've had in the past. Okay, so this secured credit card, and circling back to that, I didn't create the secured credit card. I teamed up with a local credit union here in the Chicagoland area by the name of Kane County Teachers Credit Union. Now, typically, a credit union only works within a certain area, and you have to be part of a certain group, and there's a bunch of rules. I've become an affiliated member to offer their services in all 50 states. We got it approved by the Illinois Department of Professional Regulations, IDFPR, for everybody here in Illinois who knows that. You got to get their blessing before you do anything business-wise with licensing. So the IDFPR has signed off, because they know I'm on the radio, to enable me and my team to go out and promote this product nationwide.
Well, hold
So
on
if
one
you're
moment.
sitting on a treadmill,
Oh, so wait,
Yes.
so you don't have to be a member of said credit union, but you can get the secure
Correct.
credit. Okay, just checking.
as long as you come in through our portal. Okay, so as long as you come in through our portal as a Team Hochberg listener, or a Team Hochberg, whatever you want to call it, they are allowed to provide their services to you. It could be in Anchorage, Alaska. It could be in Key West, Florida. It could be in Bangor, Maine, or it could be in Honolulu, Hawaii, and all points in between. It doesn't matter. So what is a secured credit card? Let's get to that question. Okay. The answer to that question is this. A secured credit card is you provide the bank, in this case, Kane County Teachers Credit Union. You give them $500 because that's their minimum to open this account. It's not coming to me. I'm not touching any of your money. I'm not processing any of your credit card payments. It's all going to Kane County Teachers Credit Union. They're an accredited and insured lending institution. You give them $500. And as long as you haven't defaulted on a Kane County Teachers Credit Union loan in the past, that's the only way you're not going to get a loan, right? If you owe them money, they want their money before they give you, extend you more credit. That's fair. As long as you're 18 and don't owe Kane County Teachers Credit Union any money on a defaulted loan in the past, and you give them $500 deposit, any listener listening right now will be issued a Team Hochberg Fresh Start secured Visa credit card with no annual fee. Okay? What does that mean? That means that you now have a credit card that your friend who had a divorce and his credit got blown up can get credit. That means somebody who just filed for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and has a file number and has a report number from the county that you or your attorney filed it in, you could secure a Team Hochberg Fresh Start secured Visa credit card with no annual fee to start building your credit. So what happens? You apply for it. You go to 56 David /Fresh Start, and it'll take you right to a landing page. Click the two boxes on the bottom. It takes you to another landing page. Fill in your information, and then somebody from Kane County Teachers Credit Union will get back to you within 48 hours. It's typically 24, but just due to the enormous volume we've had, due to the success in launching the program, they asked me to go out and let all the listeners know that 48 hours, somebody will be back with them to help them get rolling. So now you give them $400, put it into an account. They will give you a credit card that works similar to a debit card that you could use at every single location. Visa's worldwide. It's universally accepted everywhere. Okay, you buy gas, boom, you pay it with your credit card instead of your debit card. You go buy a sandwich, you go get a coffee, pay it with your credit card, not with your debit card. You take the family out to a movie or to Applebee's or wherever you go for your dinners, boom, put it there. You go to the grocery store, instead of putting on a debit card, use your credit card. Now here's the key. Every transaction that you make is now reporting to all three major credit scoring agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. When you use your debit card, it's not reporting anywhere. You're getting no credit history off of that transaction. Yeah, Sally down at the nail shop, or Sally over at the diner, or Sally at the grocery store when you pay your food, whatever. When she takes over that debit card and swipes it for you to pay for the services that you consumed, that's great. It's going right to the business she works for or owns, but you're getting no credit history. You're getting no points for that. If you switched your payment habits, it's just a switching of the payment habits. And instead of the debit card, keep your debit card for when you need cash out of an ATM. That's it.
Well, let me ask you
Instead,
this.
pull out your Team Hockford. Yeah, go.
Do you have to pay the balance at the end of the month, or could you pay like if you
I was just getting to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just getting to that. So I just wanted to go over the spending patterns first. So you're spending it, right? Now you have a $500 Visa card, Team Hartford Fresh Start Visa card. You put down, you paid it down by $250 because you have $250 worth of charges on that, right? Tank of gas is 50, 60, 70 bucks, right? You go grocery shop, 50, 60, 70 dollars. You go for a coffee with a friend, it could be $4 to $12, right? You buy a whatever, right? You use it. Now you've worked that $500 limit down to $250 in this example. Okay. What I recommend is use the credit card exactly how you would have used your debit card. And every single Friday, you go online and you pay off the credit card, which means you're reloading it back to $500. So in the example that I just gave you, if 1 week's worth of charges is $250, you go online every Friday. Why a Friday? Because who forgets a Friday? You wake up Friday morning, you go online and you reload that card with $250. So now you're back up to a balance of $500 of accessible charges, right? You've got $500 worth of availability on that card. That is the same thing as paying your credit card off down to zero. It's just in reverse. And what is that showing the credit agencies? It's showing the credit agencies that you took your card from $500 down to $250 and then paid it back, right? So essentially in the credit scoring model, you have a zero balance. You have 100% utilization. When you had $250 on a $500 credit card, you were at 50% utilization. That's not good, right? So if you pay it off every single week and get into a habit, again, I'm just asking your listeners to adjust their spending habits away from the debit card to the credit card and to pay off the credit card exactly how they used the debit card. The only difference is when you use your debit card, your payment is being made instantaneously and your balance in your checking and savings account are decreasing instantaneously. I'm just recommending and trying to re-educate listeners, right? We have to reprogram ourselves to use a credit card, especially for those listeners who aren't used to having credit or who had credit in the past and got burnt for whatever reason. Listen, I was young and naive, okay? I opened up a Columbia Records and Tape Club. Remember that?
Oh,
okay,
my,
10
yes.
10 records for, okay, hello, 10 records for $1. I didn't think I'd ever get caught. All of a sudden, as a 12-year-old, I'm getting all these LPs. I'm like, this is awesome. Then the collection notice comes, right? And my father's like, what's up with this? I learned at a very young age, what credit was all about. He's like, what are you doing, right? And he was basically an accountant, and he sat me down, and he taught me what's going on. I never made that mistake again, okay? So we need to educate the listening public as to what the value is. So what happens? Now your listeners have a pulse. Your friend who had a Chapter 7 who couldn't get a credit card now has a credit card. The best part about this is Kane County Teachers Credit Union is going to review every single account every 6 months. They're going to look at the payment history, they're going to look at the risk, and they're going to determine if they can convert that secured credit card where you put up the $500. And I got some people, listeners putting up $1,000 or $2,000 because they've got a bunch of cash and they want to build their credit back faster. Okay. And they are going to review it to see if that cardholder has been a good cardholder, has been making on-time payments, is a low credit risk. And if they determine, it's up to them. I got nothing to do with it, right? But every 6 months they're reviewing it. And if they determine that you're doing everything right and you're not that big of a credit risk, they will turn that secured credit card into an unsecured credit card. So what happens with the $500? The $500 gets issued as a credit against your credit card. So now you've got a credit card that went from a secured credit card to an unsecured credit card, which further boosts your listeners' credit score and establishes a foundation and a stronger profile than what they have now. And that $500, they could go out and continue to spend the money. And when that $500 credit is consumed, right, you're still going to go out and buy your gas. You're still going to go out and buy your groceries. Still going to go out, take the family out, whatever, right? You want to see a movie. It's now $100 to see a movie. It's ridiculously, as that sound here in the Chicagoland area for a family of four. If you want popcorn, sodas, and tickets, fine. You want to do that. Then after you work that money down on the unsecured card, you then start paying it back like a normal credit card. What we've done during the first 6 months or 12 months, however long it takes the credit union to determine if that consumer is a good risk or not, it puts that consumer into a good habit, right? We're teaching everybody how to walk again before they could run, right? So that's what a secured credit card is. We are educating the public how to walk with credit and then how to run with credit, because we turn the secured card into an unsecured card. My best friend in the world's girlfriend went through a horrific divorce. Mm-hmm. It's been going on for 7 years, okay? 7-year divorce. Her credit shot. She's about ready to file a Chapter 7. This is my best friend in the world, right? The guy I met first day of first grade, okay, in 1972. All right, we've been buddies like Siamese twins. He's like, hey, she needs some help. I gave her a call. She's like, she's 51 years old. She's like, I never knew this. And I'm going through this. I'm like, yeah. She's like, how long is it going to take me to rebuild my credit? She's a ghost right now. She's got nothing. She's got a credit card from her brother that she's an authorized user. Her brother's a doctor, right? Just in case of emergency, he wanted her to have a card. All right. I said, here's the deal. If you do every single thing that I recommend within 6 months, your credit scores will be in the 600s. If you do everything that I recommend, you've got a very, very good shot of being in the 700s within 12 to 18 months.
And what happens if you go into the 600s and the 700s? What happens then?
Well, what happens is a couple of things. Number one, you're back on the grid when your mailbox starts blowing up a credit card offers, right? Your mailbox is going to start having a party because now you basically are showing a pulse again, and every credit card issuer wants to get you on. You're going to rip those up. So what happens when you get into the 600s and the 700s? As you work your way up the credit scoring matrix, you become a better credit risk for other businesses out there, that are looking to provide you with their services and their goods and services. So they're going to start coming after you and hawking you for, to buy their goods and services. You're going to take those credit cards, put it right in the shredder and shred it. The other thing it does is if you're going to buy a car, if you have 500 credit scores, you're going to be in the 20s in interest rates. And if you've got credit scores in the high 600, 700s, you're going to get the lower credit scores and open yourself up for other opportunities for credit in the future. Plus lower insurance rates as well, because your insurance rate you pay on your homeowners is based upon your credit score, believe it or not.
Ooh. So how do we apply for this secure credit card? What do we do?
Yeah, it's simple. You go to 5, the number 6, david.com/fresh start. I'm also on the 22nd, 7 o'clock Central Time. I am hosting via Zoom a credit empowerment seminar. I finally got my studio set up in my office. You can go to 56david.com/credit if you want to register for the credit empowerment seminar. It's an hour. It's limited to 300 people because that's Zoom. It's got nothing to do with me. But if you want to take advantage of the credit card, it's 56david.com/fresh start. If you want to register, and your show is the first one I'm offering this to. I'm going on other shows later today, but the Santita Jackson Show is the first show that I'm offering listeners to sign up. So 56david.com/credit on the 22nd of August, 7 o'clock Central Time. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. It's going to be powerful, and hope to have your listeners join us.
Okay, so can they just go to 56david.com? And
56david.com, and they could move around the website, or they could just call me at 855-56-DAVID, and I'll be more than happy to help them with that as well.
Okay, just trying to make it as easy as possible. You've got
Yep, I hear you.
56david.com, 56david.com, or 855-56david. Hey, don't be a ghost
Yes.
in this credit system. You don't have to be. You do not have to be. And you don't even have to be a member of the credit union. You can get this card right now for as little as $500. But you can put more money on the card, you were saying. You can put $1,000, you can put $2,000 if you have that much.
100%. And then here, if you put $1,000, if you have $1,000 and you charge $250, you're only at 25% capacity. And that looks more favorably in the credit reporting agency's eyes than being at 50% on a $500 card. But listen, I know that people don't have $1,000 laying around. So if you have, but a lot of our listeners don't have $500 laying around. But if you could scrounge up $500, right, then open it up for $500. If you have more, it will help you out because your credit will rebound faster with a higher credit limit than a lower credit limit. But if you have 500, let's start there and let's roll. Let's go. I'm ready to help. I just need your listeners to activate, and I'll help them.
David Hochberg, everybody, back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Can
That
you
was
give?
great.
Can you? Oh, absolutely. Can you give people, because we're on several platforms right now during the break, let people know when this seminar is, what it's about, if you could give it to us very quickly.
Sure. It's August 22nd, Tuesday, August 22nd, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm going to go through what credit is, how to establish credit, how to enhance your credit, answer all the questions, because when your listeners go to sign up to register, there is a text box that I set up that they could ask questions. And what I do is I take all of the questions that registrants have, and I form and create the credit enhancement seminar around the questions. So I answer as many questions as I can during the slideshow, during the presentation. Then we open it up for calls and questions at the end where participants can submit their questions, and then we just stay on as long as people have crossed, stay there till midnight. If participants have questions, right out of my office here in Northbrook, I set up a studio, so we're ready to roll.
Okay, and that's August 22nd.
Yeah, Tuesday, August 22nd, 7 o'clock Central Time. And when you register, we'll get all your information, and then we'll send out a Zoom link for everybody that registered to participate. And I encourage listeners to bring in their high school kids who'll be rolling their eyes and their college kids who are interested in this, because I had a lot of listeners reach out to take out a credit card for their 18-year-olds going to college.
Mr. McKee and Attorney Patillo are on.
Own credit card. They opened up these secured fresh start credit cards for their kids going to college so they can start building credit while they're at college, buying books, and buying food, and going to games and buying shirts and whatever they do at college, buying beer, pizzas. So they're helping their kids that are in college or going to college start to establish credit while they're 18. So when they get out of college, they've got a great foundation, not only educationally, but also on the credit front as well.
Okay, August 22nd, everybody. Go to 56david.com, 56david.com, or call 855-56David, 855-56David by phone call, or by, you can go online and find out about this August 22nd seminar, but you can also find out about this secure credit card right now. Go on and stop getting ghosted, and stop being a ghost in this credit system, because this is the way the system works, actually. And now they are connecting social credit scores to your credit. And you will be blocked from buying homes, from even doing something as simple. You're seeing this in China. They're starting to do this, from getting on the train if you don't have good credit. Think about that.
No way. Really?
Yeah. I mean, because they're connecting they're making it really,
Wow.
They're making it a character issue, which I think is shameful, because most people in America are struggling from payday to Monday.
Yeah.
The fact is,
real
wages have not moved in 50 years. So what they're doing, at the same time, you've had the greatest wealth transfer in human history. We have Jeff Bezos, who they don't mention it anymore, but he's on track to become a trillionaire. Some people have too much, and most people have too little. And my pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, said, our pastor, Dwight McKee, said, I've never seen God make a mouth that God couldn't feed. So something is off here. And it's not you, but as long as the system is what it is, you need credit, and you need solid credit. You need good credit. And you also need to understand how to have good spending habits, Not your fault, because we're in a consumer-driven culture. Every time you're inundated with all the things you need to buy. So,
Right.
but let's work it out. David Hochberg, it's always a joy to be with you. August 22nd. What time?
Yes, ma'am. Tuesday night, August 22nd, 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time. And you could sign up anywhere in the United States. I think even in Europe, as long as you have the link and an internet connection, you could join. And the information's universal, right? I know that they've got different grading scores, models up in Canada and Mexico and in Europe, but it's the same principles, right? Take out credit, pay your credit off, don't overextend yourself, don't pay things late. It's the same principle.
Well, what about in
if
South
you-
and
if you've
Central
got-
America? I mean, because I know they're de-dollarizing
Same thing.
and they're joining the BRICS nations. I have a lot of people who tune in from Venezuela and Brazil and Colombia now, even.
Credit's credit, right?
Okay.
It doesn't discriminate against sex or color or religion. It's the same patterns. It's the same fundamentals.
No, you
right?
mentioned Europe. I just wanted to cover some other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So all these habits that I'm teaching our listeners here in the United States can be transferred, and it's all portable no matter where in the world.
Well, other people don't live on credit the way that we do. So I hear you.
That is true.
This is going to be fantastic. They don't do this.
That is very true.
My brother, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., said we're the best dressed poor people in the world. Think about that. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
It's true.
yeah.
Sad, but it's true.
Yeah, it is. That's the way the system was created. But David Hochberg, thank you. And we'll get you back on next week because we want people to tune into this credit seminar on August 22nd. And so everybody call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com and find out about the seminar on August 22nd. Sending you all of my warmest regards, David.
I appreciate that. You have a wonderful day, and thank you for the opportunity.
Blessings to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
1 minute.
Thank you. Dwight McKee,
Boys.
Robert Patillo.
Good morning.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to get right to it, everybody. Okay. Whew, okay. Whew. Robert, how do you like doing morning drive? Just very quickly before. How was that?
Other than waking at 4:30 a.m. is
30 seconds.
that whole waking up early thing is I'm used to waking up at 6, and I thought that was early. Waking up at 4 is a whole different monster.
Yeah, I'm up at 2. I hear you. It's something. But I know you're great.
I used to come in the house at 4 o'clock. Now wake up at 4 o'clock.
Well, now, Robert.
10 seconds.
Thank you, sweetie. We're inside until we're at 5 seconds.
Stand by.
You can't do that, sweetie, and not do this.
We
Oh,
can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want you to meet Kenneth Rush, who's wishing everyone a great grand rising. I love it, Kenneth. And of course, CL5, you were looking for me, and I'm so glad that we were finally able to get up. Jewel up in New York. Joyce, we got Sandy in Detroit. Hey. I love it. Max in DC. And Joyce out there. How you doing, sweetie? Sending you all so much love. Mark out in the suburbs. Dave up in Canada. Sending you all so much love today. Let's talk about former President Trump and his legal troubles, everybody. Will he go to jail before his trial even begins? Call me at 773 763 WCPT 773-763-9278. What will that look like? Of course, there are legal and political implications. We're going to be talking with attorney Robert Patillo about that, and of course, Dwight McKee. And then what about renters? Renters are struggling. Renters are struggling. Yes, struggling. People need some money. Will they get any relief? We're going to be talking with Dr. Max Wolf about that and about rising inflation. After 12 months, it's now rising again. So let's get to some of these headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Praying for the people of Hawaii. At least 36 people have been killed in fast-moving wildfires in Hawaii. Several large fires are raging across Maui and the Big Island, Hawaii. Dry conditions and high winds connected to Hurricane Dora are fueling their spread. Twitter was fined $350,000 for failing to turn over Donald Trump's data. An Ecuadorian presidential candidate, a leading candidate, was shot dead yesterday as he left a political rally in Quito last night. It came less than 2 weeks before the country's elections. The FBI fatally shot a man after alleged threats against President Biden. The shooting took place as agents were serving an arrest warrant yesterday in Provo, Utah. The man had allegedly threatened to kill President Biden and other officials. It came just ahead of President Biden's visit to Salt Lake City. So glad that he is safe. The fight against rising prices may have stalled last month. Everybody will be talking with Dr. Wolf about that. The government's latest inflation figures will be released this morning. They're expected to show a pickup in inflation. That is not good news. Robbie Robertson, the great guitarist and songwriter, The Weight, of course, the great Aretha Franklin hit. And of course, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, Joan Baez. Well, he made his transition, 80 years of age yesterday. Taking just 4,000 steps a day can have a big health benefit. Now, we hear about the 10,000. That's still what you need to do, everybody. As many as you can. Those are the steps that you need to take according to this Washington Post report. For people under 60, the most notable benefit came from taking between 7,000 and 13,000 steps per day. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 81 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 78 degrees, mostly cloudy. In the World Cup today, Spain versus the Netherlands at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, Japan versus Sweden, and Australia versus France. In Major League Baseball, the Twins will be facing off against the Tigers. The White Sox last night were triumphant over the Yankees 9-2, but the Mets bested the Cubs 4-3. In the WNBA today, the Lynx will be playing the Fever, and tomorrow the Liberty will be taking on our Sky. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. What about this crazy political season? There's so much that is being bandied about. And they're having hearings in Congress. Unfortunately, corporate media, it has cultural appeals. So you hear on Fox, you hear about the hearings because it's a Republican-controlled House. I think they should be talking about the hearings on CNN and MSNBC because you get a fuller picture of why people are thinking the way they're thinking and what they're seeing. You need to know what's happening, everybody. So appeal to these news outlets to see it all. See it all. Give me the information and then I can decide. Well, the former Secretary of Labor, Robert Reich, has said he posed this question: will Trump go to jail before his trial even begins? Now, see, the judge has told him, okay, I don't want you to get on social media and talk about this. I don't want to talk to other people. But it seems that he's breaking these agreements. And so I wanted to talk with attorney Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, about this political and the legal fallouts of this. But first, why don't you set the table for us, Robert Patillo? What is going on? Is it possible? I mean, I even read in a Politico article that if all of these charges, if you put them all on one table, he is looking at 641 years in prison. Now, Politico said, no, that's not likely, but he could get some jail time. He could get prison time. He could get jail time because of what he is saying before he even gets to court. Robert Patillo, what's going on?
Well, I think it's important for people to understand that if President Trump was not the former president of the United States of America, he would have already been in jail for contempt of court. what the federal judge in the January 6th case made clear, and they made a point of saying this directly to President Trump and his attorneys, is that they did not want him attempting to influence or to poison the jury pool. This includes making public statements that would critical of the investigation. This would include calling out prosecutors, calling out judges, criticizing the judiciary system, criticizing the investigators, because in some, what President Trump is trying to articulate to any potential jurors around the entire country who could be called in for jury service is that before you even walk in, the idea that this is a corrupted system, this is a corrupted prosecution. And remember, he only needs to influence one juror to simply believe that this prosecution is corrupted. And then at that point, it doesn't matter what evidence you produce. It doesn't matter what the witnesses are. You're no longer trying to try the case based on the facts. The case is decided by at least one person prior to walking in. In addition to this, the judge made clear that President Trump could not should stop making personal attacks about prosecutors and judges because of this risk of political violence. As was mentioned during the news read, the presidential candidate in Ecuador was just assassinated. We're seeing increased political violence around the world. We just have the individual in Utah who made threats against President Biden and the administration, who was shot by the FBI. So clearly, these prosecutors, they don't have Secret Service protection. These are just regular run-of-the-mill federal prosecutors doing their 9 to 5, trying to go home to their families. And we have the President of the United States who commands a legion of individuals who may commit political violence against them. That's absolutely a danger. President Trump has already violated that order at least a half dozen times since the order was made last week. In addition to that, they ordered President Trump not to attempt to intimidate or coerce witnesses. Every statement he has made about Mike Pence since that day has been an attempt to intimidate and coerce him, knowing that he is a potential witness.
Wait, didn't he say you come after me? You come after me? I'm coming after you.
Exactly. I can't think of just real quick. Imagine you take that tweet and you take President Trump's face off of it and you put a gang leader there. What do you think would happen? They would already be in custody. You put a mafia boss there. They would already be in custody. It's not as if he is hiding what he is attempting to do. It's very clear. And those things are not protected by free speech because you're making a threat against individuals, even though you can try to couch it in this ambiguous language. Nobody is going to fall for that. And when they talk about this two-tier justice system, that is a two-tier justice system. The fact that Donald Trump is not currently in jail for contempt of court, that is a two-tier justice system that has to be dealt with because none of the rest of us will be given that sort of grace. And so the idea that normally there's progressive discipline for violating a judge's order. The first time may be a verbal reprimand. The second time may be sanctioned by the court. And then they will normally, in white-collar cases in particular, escalate it to the point that they actually take you into custody. But you get a lot of leeway. The richer you are, the whiter you are, the more politically well-connected you are in cases of this nature. And President Trump, of course, being in his position as a former president and a billionaire and all those things, is going to get the most rope possible. But at some point, there's an end to that rope. And I believe the closer we get to trial, the more intense these statements will be that he's making. And then we still have the Fulton County indictment, which is probably coming down next week. And the statements President Trump made about Fani Willis, which have been absolutely racist, sexist, misogynistic, and disgusting. He's not going to stop those statements. He's facing probably as many as a dozen indictments in that case. And as you said, he's facing 640 years currently. Given the charges that he will more than likely face in Georgia, things such as racketeering, RICO, witness intimidation, election interference, etc., he could be facing well over 1,000 years in prison and potentially up to 100 charges against him, given all the cases together. And it's very unlikely President Trump will be able to make it from now until Election Day next year without violating the court orders.
Yeah, what would it look like if they put him in jail for violating the court orders? I mean, because I was mindful of what happened in Ecuador yesterday. It's so tragic, and I'm mindful of the fact that They will not give Robert Kennedy, any Secret Service protection. And given what happened to his uncle and what happened to his father, I think it's shameful. The Biden administration ought to be ashamed of themselves. When Reverend ran, there were so many credible threats. He was the most threatened candidate in history up to that point. And he got his Secret Service protection. I remember them signing the papers, working out the papers as we were about to walk out onto the stage November 3rd, 1983, as he was about to announce. Do you think I felt comfortable with my father getting Secret Service protection? Absolutely not, given Kennedy's, what happened there. But that's what had to happen. And so we're living in a time where people are just on the edge, Robert. I mean, folks all over the world, most people all over the world don't have any money. And, it's just socially, we are in a time of tremendous tumult. And so anything can happen. Anything can happen. So, I mean, why have they not just said, hey, why have they not dealt with this?
You have two callers.
I think it's partially because of the nature of what President Trump's defense has been thus far. He has argued that this is a political prosecution. This is a two-tiered justice system, that everyone is against him. So I believe the judges and the prosecutors are very aware that they cannot have any even appearance of impropriety that will bring into question the legitimacy of his convictions when they do come down. And in situations such as this, President Trump being taken into court for contempt, you would have his acolytes on every news network saying, see, this is proof they're trying to suppress his First Amendment rights. They don't want him to speak. They're trying to shut him down, which could inspire even more political violence. This is a place that we haven't seen in America, but we've seen in other countries around the world, even contemporaneously right now. There are 3 former presidents that have been arrested recently. You have Imran Khan in Pakistan, who has made almost the exact same statements as President Trump. Is literally a mirror image of what's going on in Pakistan and what's going on in America. And then you have President Basumo in Niger, who was taken into custody by his own Imperial Guard, who's currently him and his family are being held in their royal residence. So when you're talking about the fact that America now is in the same sentence with the political crisis in Niger and political crisis in Pakistan and what we're seeing in some South American countries, we can take that as a rubric, as a playbook of what can happen and what can spiral out of control. And the situation in Pakistan is spiraling towards civil war as the supporters of Khan have attempted to raid the jail to release him, have attempted to overthrow the current militaristic government. And they want to avoid that in America. So they're giving President Trump every chance to just simply abide by the judicial system. But we understand President Trump is doing this because he knows he is guilty and is trying to find a way out.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts about this before we even go to the callers? I mean, because this has political fallout as well. And when you see what's happened in Ecuador, when you see what happened with this person, they said he was, wearing a lot of Trump gear. I take that with a grain of salt. The person who the FBI shot and killed yesterday for threatening President Biden out in Utah. What do you make of this?
Well, I think he wants to go to jail. He will become the most famous prisoner since Barabbas. And it will spark all of the activities that Robert just named, and he knows that. Frankenstein was dead until Dr. Frankenstein came along and reinvigorated him. Trump lost the last election, but now he is leading in the polls because of all his activity around him, all the exposure, all the pre-publicity. He is playing this like a Stradivarius, and playing these guys like a Stradivarius.
Like Yitzhak Perlman.
And I said the other day that,
oh, yeah.
Say that again?
Like Yitzhak Perlman played the Stradivarius, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Just like that. And I said the other day, it's really 2 trials going on. One is Trump's trial, but the other one is a trial for the justice system in Biden. And the more they go after Trump, the more they expose the fact that this really is a 2-tier justice system. The more the Republicans expose Biden and his son and their activity, and the more questions get raised about this war and whether or not this is a payoff to the Biden family for them investing in getting this $10 million from Ukraine, the more the contradictions between what they're doing to Trump and what they're doing to Biden, whether right or wrong, whether real or not real, just the perception of it all, it's further and further dividing the country, and the divide is going more in Trump's favor than in Biden's favor. Trump's popularity is increasing, Biden's popularity is decreasing, and a lot of the increase, oddly enough, for Trump is among black men.
Why?
Is among black men.
Why?
I think because they have a sense of that same persecution and that same, double jeopardy. They see themselves somehow in Trump's persecution more than they see in Biden's persecution. Oddly enough, and if you look at the numbers, they will indicate that. And so I think that he's been as provocative as he can be. I think that he's calling the bluff of the justice system, and he's saying, here I am, come get me. If you want to lock me up, and you will only prove my point. And if they don't lock him up, he's only using this to raise more money, and he is, to get more publicity, and he is, and to become more popular, and he is.
You know what? Call me at 773-763-9278. You're not going to bring Max Wolf in on this. But let me bring in Dave from Chicago. Dave, what's on your mind today?
Hi, good morning, Santita, longtime listener.
Oh, thank you.
I think that Trump will more likely go to jail than not for his trial for violating the judge's orders. And I think that nobody should be afraid of putting this criminal in jail. There seems to be this tone of appeasement for fear of violent reaction from his followers. But if the Justice Department, the justice system doesn't stand up to this thug, and he is a thug, he's a bully, then he's just going to go on and continue to get away with as much crime as he can. He's not playing this like a strand of arrogance. He's doing this because he's desperate and sees it as the only way to possibly avoid going to jail. And that's why he's speaking out at his rallies. And I believe he's responsible for the FBI killing this man in Utah, because he's riling up these crazy idiots and trying to act out violence. And that's all I have to say.
Well, no, that's a whole lot to say. I mean, do you think that, it seems that there's a lot of back and forth on the right and the left, Dave, because we're not even hearing about the hearings that they're having in Congress right now. Does that concern you too?
Are you talking about the GOP's committee on Hunter Biden?
Well, they're GOP controlled, but they're congressional committees, and they're bringing out a lot of information.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
That's a sham committee to just distract from Trump's crimes and his indictments. And so, of course, they're desperate, and they're also going to do everything they can to try to keep their boss out of jail.
So let me
They're
ask
part
you.
of his mob.
So let me ask you this: you don't see any conflicts of interest with all of these people who do this business in Ukraine, and us just giving this money to this military incursion over there?
Ukraine? Well, who's incursion?
we're
Are you saying it's Ukraine's incursion?
No. It's more than $100 billion America has put into this. And now you've got a GOP candidate.
To help Ukraine defend itself from Russia's invasion.
But what does that have to do? Does that directly impact us?
Does the war? Of course it does. If you're going to allow Russia to invade Ukraine and take over Ukrainian's country, that weakens the security in Europe. That weakens NATO. This is, this is us standing up to a fascist dictator like we did in World War II against Germany and Adolf Hitler.
Even though NATO broke the agreement with Russia when we said we would not move eastward, even though we broke that agreement, that doesn't bother you.
Well,
after the reunification of Germany.
What about Russia's taking over those Eastern Bloc European countries?
No, but that was not part of the deal. I mean, I'm saying after you had the reunification of Germany, reunification of it.
Yes.
And if you want to go back to Eisenhower, he said if NATO is still necessary in 10 years, he said this more than 60 years ago, he said this experiment will have failed and we need to come up with something else. So the fact that it is still necessary shows that something is off here. And it's interesting because African countries have told NATO, do not come into Niger. And you're about to have a real big conflagration on the African continent. But stay here and talk to us during the break, Dave. I think you're fascinating. We're going to have Dr. Max Wolf, who'll be walking into this conversation, but we're talking about inflation, which is now beginning to creep back. No, hold on, sweetie. I want you to talk to us during the break, okay? Dave?
He's on hold.
Okay, all right. So don't leave. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Dave? I'm going to bring him up. Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I just had a hard break because I'm on in more than one.
Sure,
place.
I understand.
Okay, but I wanted Attorney Patillo and Dwight McKee to respond to you because I think what you're saying is fascinating.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you want me to hang on or
no? Yeah. I mean, well, you know what? I mean, what do you hear, Dwight, Robert? What are you hearing from Dave? Starting with you, Robert.
Well, I think this is in large part what a lot of the country, the way that a lot of the country views this, that the issue that Republicans are having with these hearings they're doing currently is the timing of it. Because they had 4 years when President Trump was in office, when they had control of the Senate, well, for example, or when they had control of the House in the first 2 years to do these investigations. The fact of them doing it while President Trump was getting arrested every 2 weeks makes, I think, a lot of Americans very skeptical about the information coming out. And then when all of the quote-unquote whistleblowers and star witnesses keep turning out to be busts, it takes away the credibility of it. One of the things they always tell you in moot court while you're in law school is never ask a question you don't know the answer to already, and never bring up a witness that you don't know what they're going to say. And it seems that Republicans do this continuously, which I think takes away credibility from their investigation. And quite frankly, the fact that President Trump keeps getting arrested. If it was just one arrest, I think people will be able to go back and forth. When it's just arrest after arrest after arrest, of course, that's going to be what people pay attention to, for better or for worse.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, all I can think of is all of the propaganda that surrounded the weapons of mass destruction. And it was determined that all of those were lies and all that it was a farce. And so, I mean, how can you trust anybody? How can you trust either party? How can you trust, either president? Both of the system, to me, is just me talking, is a corrupt system. And in a corrupt system, the issue is which corruption is going to prevail. And so I'm personally voting for Dr. West. I think both these guys got major issues of credibility, of integrity. And I think that when all of the dice cast, is not going to be any distinguishable difference between Trump and the Biden family. And so I just think that in those two scenarios, Trump has the momentum, and if the president will probably end up the president and then be able to pardon himself. but I don't see any major moral differences in either one of them.
1 minute.
Dave, your thoughts? I got about 30 seconds.
My thoughts is that I'm not sure if he's playing the devil's advocate or he actually believes this. I think you're wrong. I believe that you're making a false equivalency between. Don't get me wrong. I know the Democratic Party has a lot to fix. But I see them making a much better effort at helping out the average middle guy.
30 seconds.
Republican Party.
But
and I see.
I'm talking about the Biden family and the Trump
the Biden family being no better than the Trump family. Is that what you're saying?
10 seconds.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I disagree with that also.
Your prerogative.
I mean, because his son is involved in had a drug problem and some other issues, doesn't make the entire family corrupt. I don't think.
It's tied into.
Stand by. Hold on. I want you all to wrap
This
this
is
up.
the Santita Jackson Show.
The amount of crimes that the Trump family has committed.
Dave, you can speak to that on the other side. Just hold on.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. You know, during the break, we just do a lot of talking. That's why you need to join the Morning Stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel so that you can hear what many of the callers, what you all have to say, because I like engaging you during the break too, because if I don't have time to carry on the radio, I want people to hear you. But I think someone might be driving. If you could mute yourself for a hot second, because I want us to be able to hear everything. Dwight, you made a point, and then David responded, responded to it. Dwight, your point during the break, and then I want Dave to respond.
Is that if you're talking about influence peddling that is turn itself into policies on a war, and 50,000 people die in that war because you are compromised by some deal with a foreign country who's given your family millions and millions and millions of dollars, that to me is a level of corruption that is really incomparable with anything that Trump has done. I'm not saying Trump is a saint, because he ain't. He also needs to be in jail. But I'm saying if you're looking for the moral imperative, it don't exist in either party or either family, in my opinion.
Dave, your response.
My response is that I've seen far more crimes being committed by the Trump and his administration and members of his family, and that includes an attempted coup on the United States. I don't see anything close to that coming from the Biden family. And I see a lot more influence peddling coming from Trump when he was in the White House, basically using it as his place of business, or I don't see that with the Biden family. And going back to Ukraine, whether it's right or wrong to support Ukraine, Ukraine had a treaty with Russia when it turned over all its nuclear weapons. That when it decided to turn over its nuclear weapons, that was in exchange for a promise not to invade Ukraine. Russia violated that treaty, or that agreement, rather.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think it's something we need to continue to debate, and I hold to this point, Dave. I think it's important for us to hear all of the hearings, because it's not a GOP hearing, just as January 6th was not a Democratic hearing. It's a hearing held by Congress, and you can have Democrats and Republicans disagree with them, but I want to get the information, because I think that we as Americans deserve to know. And you need to understand why people have the worldviews that they have. But Dave, I hope your final word, Dave.
I just want to say regarding the Republican hearing, it's really no different than when the Republicans were grilling Hillary Clinton for all those months about Benghazi. And then later Kevin McCarthy admitted that it was just
partisan foolishness.
Try to bring her poll numbers down. So
but think about Comey, the head of the FBI. I guess my point is this is a game that people play, and I think that wherever we see the corruption, whether it comes from Democrats, Republicans, or independents, we need to call it out because you need that out of the system.
Oh, I agree
because right
with that.
now nobody trusts any. You don't trust Congress. You don't trust the Supreme Court. You don't. No one trusts the executive branch. No one trusts anybody, and that is a very dangerous place for Americans to be.
Going on.
But it's not just false equivalency. There is corruption. Period. And it needs to stop.
Corruption, and there's a lot of disinformation too.
Yeah.
That's
And that's why all these news organizations owe it to Americans to show it all. It's too much.
Yeah,
They should show it all, and then give your commentary if that's what you're going to do. But show it all. I think we need to, as we were watching the January 6th hearings, we should have seen them. The hearings that are happening in Congress now, we need to see them. And then you bring the commentators on to refute what you've heard or to support it. It's just that simple.
And we should have televise the Trump trials too.
Televise all of them. I need to know what's happening with Hunter. I need to know what's happening with everybody so that we can also begin to trust the judicial system again. Because not again. Black folks have always had a problem with it. It's always never been fair. But we gotta and indigenous people and poor people. And so, we got a lot of things to work out, but I hope that we will become transpartisan and transparent. But I'm sending you much love, sweetie. I gotta pivot, okay?
Okay, thank you, Santita.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you
Take
listened.
care.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening and challenging us. Of course, Dr. Max Wolf, you never know what you're going to walk into. Of course, I've got Attorney Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee who always want to hear what you've got to say. But we've got a lot going on. We've been talking about our former Secretary Reich, who said, hey, you know what? Let me tell you something. Reich, excuse me. Trump could go to jail before he goes to trial. And Dwight McKee just said, what? You said, Dwight, you think he wants to go to jail? I'd like Dr. Wolf to be able to respond to that because he has so many brilliant insights. Dwight?
I think he's playing the Justice Department, like I said, like a Stradivarius, in that he is trying to create a confrontation. So it comes down to free speech or oppressive government. And he's exercising in his mind his right to free speech. And the benefit of that is that if they don't put him in jail, he's defying the government. If they put him in jail, I said he becomes the most famous president since Barabbas, and he becomes a political prisoner. And it creates another momentum around him to say,
Dr. Wolf is on.
To say, he becomes the Angela Davis of white racists. Free Donald Trump, free Donald Trump.
Oh my gosh.
And so all of the momentum really is in his favor right now. And as Biden's numbers decrease, Donald Trump's number increase, because to a lot of people, a lot of true-blooded Americans, he does look like a martyr, as if this is all contrived for the sake of not allowing him to run at all. It plays into his narrative.
Well, let me respond to Guy. He said Santita's misinforming Chicago and Ukraine that $100 billion is for U.S. weapons equipment sent over there, not cash. I never said it was cash. I said we put more than $100 billion into Ukraine. I never said cash. Never did. So you're misinforming. That's not what I said. I said we've made that kind of investment in Ukraine. And my question is, while Americans are starving, while we've had a 7 million person jump in hunger in America, why? I still do not have an executive order on voting rights. So Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was gutted, which means I got problems. The people in Alabama, we were just talking about that this week, they're supposed to have a second majority minority district. They don't have that because the state Supreme Court in Alabama has given the finger to the U.S. Supreme Court because I don't have my federal voting rights. I don't have federally protected voting rights. So when you want to talk to me about fighting for democracy someplace else and I can't get it here, you just need to Just hold on to that. Freeze on that. Because this is not about democracy. This is about business. It's about business. It's about money. These people could care less about, our creditors are the Chinese. They're communist, kind of, and capitalist. Our best friends are socialists. That's right. The special relationship we have is with England. The only rich people are the royal people. Everybody else has got bad teeth and bad health in England. What are you talking about? Our creditors are communists. Our best friends are socialists. Seriously? That's not misinformation. It's just the truth. Dr. Wolf, your thoughts as we talk about the money?
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, I'm not sure that I am fully up to snuff on the previous conversations, but I mean, in terms of, are we talking about the inflation numbers today or cost of living?
I want to talk about the inflation numbers, but this is all happening in a political context. I mean, last night, one of the leading candidates for president of Ecuador was killed. You've got Robert Kennedy, who's been denied Secret Service protection. Whatever you feel about his politics, given his family's history, he certainly does need it, and he's polling high enough in the polls to warrant it. And you've got someone who threatened to kill the president yesterday, and the FBI shot him dead. I mean, and you've got hearings going on in Congress, but MSNBC won't talk about the hearings, let alone play them, and CNN won't, but Fox does. But if it's something that the Democrats want, Fox won't air it, but CNN and MSNBC, it's a mess. In the meantime, most Americans do not trust the three branches of government. I mean, so when the Fed talks about inflation, we don't trust that either. It's just a mess. Max?
Yeah, part of how the Republican Party has survived, despite the fact that its positions are not just not representative of a lot of Americans, they're literally causing the rage and decay in a lot of the white working class community. So how do you get elected snuffing out your voters? They started the business of literally killing them. Their COVID policy, not just waiting for the economic policies to kill them, was too slow. So how do you still get reelected? Well, partly you don't, so you change the rules, and partly you do by keeping up a pretty robust campaign of mis and disinformation. Now, the Republican Party is not the only ones who do this, and once it defines your political culture, it becomes a necessary thing to do to survive, right? It's a little bit like campaign finance 2.0. If you try to take the high road sounds good, but where it leads you off is the town dump. And you're left there, kind of a one-way trip. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to compete in that environment, you're going to start to do things and take donations, because otherwise you can't compete, right? And so I think this begins to be the problem with some of the partisanship and the spin. Most parties don't like someone who's a bit embarrassing and banging away at the front runner. The Republican Party wouldn't have allowed Kennedy to get this far. They're probably helping to pay for him too. That's the environment. And Democrats will do the same thing, right? It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of logic, right? So what suffers in this is the public's access to information and the public's access to choices in terms of who they can vote for and what opinions and facts about the world they get, right? And this is obviously the definition of undemocratic, so it's unfortunate. I think right now we're in a moment where we're trying to decide if we're going to have a democracy at all. And I don't think we're all the same mind here, and I'm not sure we will, right? And so I think we have a weird moment. We have this country that has run around the world being the champion of free trade, being aggressively protectionist. And we have this country that's run around the world promoting democracy, sometimes at gunpoint, having a pretty open dialogue about whether or not it wants to be democratic, with a lot of people on, I think, what you'd have to call both sides of that story, right? So it's a pretty unique moment in the country's history, and sort of on some level this is always true, but maybe particularly it's for all the marbles, right? On the background is that the average American is just not doing that well, in and out. They don't do that well in the booms. They really suffer in the busts and the downturns, and the trajectory they're on is unambiguously clear, and they're really angry. What separates different groups into potentially mortal or violent enemies is who they blame, how they blame, right? So if they decide it's because homosexual Americans and bisexual Americans and the whole LGBTQAI community or trans people have gotten some rights, that their life is in trouble, they veer off one way. If they decide it's because the town has more opportunities for African Americans than they were a kid, they go that way. If they decide it's because some desperate single mom crossed the border to work at Walmart and steal their prosperity, they go that way. If they decide it's because big companies and mainstream media are lying to them or stealing from them, they go that way, right? But I think part of what's happening in American politics is the middle is hollowing out. And in a country that's generally quite conservative, that has a long and proud history of stifling left voices, often by ventilating the skulls of people who advocate them, you don't have much left. And so as you sort of lurch to the extreme, the right extreme takes more, gets more. And then also, you have a country that's drifted pretty far to the right, even by American historical standards. So you have this sort of heavy right drift, and you have a bunch of people voting their own extinctions and really angry at other people about it. And the problem with that is the more you do it, the more you do it. Right? So to me, and this will be controversial, but to me, Donald Trump, and I've said this, you know this, and you don't like it, and you probably have good points, but I've said this right from the beginning, right from 2016. Donald Trump is the white O.J. Simpson. Right? He took a series of actions that look like he was framed because he framed himself. Because he's not careful, he's not very smart, and he's operated with total impunity for 70 years. And it's worked for him. So he is a creature of his environment. And he does things that do look like being framed, right? It's a little bit like driving around in the Bronco with the tarp and the shovel, right? I don't know what the tarp and shovel is for, but I know that it looks like you're framed. And here's where I want to make the distinction. Mm-hmm. If you're an African American looking at the American criminal justice system, history would tell you to be very skeptical of the black man accused of killing white people, especially a white woman, especially maybe a white woman
with drug debts. Yes.
Well, but whether she had drug debts or not,
no.
Right?
These are not disputable facts. These are facts. I mean, may peace be upon her. I mean, because I'm not trying to look. I would not disrespect her if she were alive. I just, it's just.
I don't pretend.
I
know what happened.
No, I know. I don't pretend to know what happened, but I'm just saying the facts of the case that they didn't even get a chance to present, that people were talking about in L.A., and that people know about her living. If she lived a fast life, I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Look,
and she had Mark Furman and the Alpha and Trump's got the alphabet boys. So what you gonna do?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's that different, right? My point is,
it's not.
If you're an African-American male looking at a criminal justice system, accusing you of murdering a white woman with whom you were intimate, history suggests there's a lot of probability that things going on here other than the facts of the case. That's been American history, right? Where I would distinguish my point is, if you're a rich white guy who's gotten away with this for 70 years, right, then you have reason to believe you'll get away with it next time. That's not crazy, right? If you've let someone get away with stuff for 70 years, they're going to think they're going to get away with it tomorrow. And so they're going to do crazy stuff.
And crazier.
Right? So they're going to up the ante, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the mentality, double or nothing. Because if you have a winner-take-all society with thin values, where all that matters is how much stuff you have and how much money you have, and no one cares how you got it, because if you have enough of them, you can pay a bunch of people to stand around and say it's legit, right? And Donald Trump understands that world because he comes from it, right? His grandfather seems to have been a pimp. Mm-hmm. His dad definitely played fast and loose and made a lot of money and gave it to this kid. And that's it. That's how he got his money. Yeah. He's never been that good at making money, except for promoting himself. And it turns out, no fault of Donald Trump's, that self-promotion is the basis of an American presidential campaign. So he's a pretty good campaigner, right? He has also really jacked up the enthusiasm and brought to the fore a large group of Americans that I think were less politically active beforehand. They were there. He didn't create them, but he really drained the swamps right into his hats for $10 a pop, made in China. Right? And he's pretty good at that, because if you have a carnival and you're a carnival barker, and he has always been a carnival barker, they're not that picky at who comes to the carnival. They just really care about that $5.99. It's a select group of elite people with $4.99 that they're interested in, right? And he sort of got that select elite group of people, of anyone with $4.99, and he got him into politics. He did and was allowed to do and got paid to do what a sort of progressive always tries to do and gets into trouble for, which is bring out all those people who don't always come out, who believe a set of things, right? And then he started saying things that they were told they were pariahs for saying things about women, about things he's done to women that he wants to do, things he wants to do to foreigners, feelings about African Americans, feelings about sexual violence, and that he became their hero by doing that stuff, right? And so now you have a sinking group of people blaming the usual suspects, and they identify with him, right? And there was always one very true, very authentic thing about Donald Trump. He very much is fawning and wants to be an elite, but he's angry at the elites for rejecting him. Not because he doesn't have the money. He always had the money, but because there's a disquieting sleaze factor about a person who would, get into the casino business despite inheriting money, who would talk openly about sexual passion for his own daughter, right? That will get you ostracized. And because he can't imagine it's him or his personality, he thinks that it's the liberal elites. Look, as a person who probably spends some time with liberal elites, I don't think the community is all that, unique. I don't think non-elites would like that. I don't think conservative elites like him either that much all the time. It's just sort of people who are worried about public content and decorum and conduct have a hard time with guys like this, right? There's always that guy, and we all know that guy. There's always that guy who's staring at the kids in a way that makes everybody's skin crawl at the barbecue. He is that guy. And there are a lot of those guys, and he has created an army of them.
Well, why have people gone past all of those creepy feelings? Is it because, and
I always make this point,
and we'll talk about this next week, or maybe days before this.
Him.
They don't like him.
Don't like him.
They need him,
despite that stuff. No, they don't like him despite the creepiness, despite the sexual violence, despite the racism. They like him because of it. That is part of America. Not the best part. Not the part I'd like to celebrate. Not the part I think we pay homage to with fireworks on July 4th. But that is part of America. His fans, and you know me, I've said this before he was elected, they don't like him despite these things. They like him because. And that's why the trial isn't going to hurt him with his fans. There is one thing, though. His fans are not enough people to even win a robust Republican primary. But they're enough to scare people and intimidate people. And if you believe in nothing but your own office, you will support someone you've been on the record for saying is a monster privately. That is most of the people who enable him on Capitol Hill. I don't think they all agree with him. I think it's bad, maybe 20% of the country, 25% of the country. But that's an aggressive amount. But last time I checked, it's less than 50.1. And, I guess I'm the one who wasted his youth in math. So I'm pretty sure that 25 is a lot less than 50.1.
I think we're at an inflection point, Dr. Wolf. I mean, I brought you on here to talk about the fact that that inflation.
And people are tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, inflation is rising again. You've got for the first time, you're looking at $2,000 a month in rent. Americans can't afford that. They cannot afford that. And so I want you to come back, really. It's the median rent in the United States is $2,000 a month. Median. Yep. And so these economists have come together.
This is New York City. We pay $650 a month for a parking space. So,
my gosh.
We've had this problem a while.
So I need you to come back to talk about that, because it seems that we're beginning to, like tomorrow, I'm going to have Greg Kelly on from SEIU, and they're having a real big fight at a local hospital here, Loretto Hospital. The workers are fighting for their rights. But you probably know this. You probably know this already. In America, we have 330 to 340 million people. How many hospital beds do we have? But 920,000. That's insane. Down from 1.5 million in 1975. It's not clear we can
staff even those either. Nursing-wise and other areas, we can't staff all the beds we have either.
And what we're doing, we're finding ways to keep people out of school. From affordability to quotas and throwing out affirmative action. This is crazy. How are we going to not just survive? How are we going to thrive? When you don't have enough hospital beds for people, of course during COVID, people are going to be dying in the streets. There There was no place for them to go. No place. So we got to talk about these issues, which is why, one of the things that I love about you, Dr. Wolf, my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, said, you know what? His throwaway thoughts are just brilliant, which is why Robert Patillo and Dwight McKee are still here listening to you right now. Because
the things I think are smart that are totally worthless.
No. I mean, you're giving us a lot to think about, and that's why we're here every day. I love you, everybody. Alex, thank you for a great show. Stay right here. I'm going to get some closing thoughts on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel with Dr. Wolf, Robert Patillo, and Dwight McKee. I know they want to respond to all that he said, but I love you, everybody. Morning Stars, sending you much love today. Jewel, I love you, girl. I love you, Barbara, up there in Oak Park. I love you, Ashley, in Memphis. I love you, Sandy, up in Detroit. I love you, Dave, up in Canada. I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. God bless you and have a great day. Dwight McKee, Robert Patillo.
Jewel is still on hold. Did you want me to put it through?
Let me bring up Jewel. Jewel, bless your heart. I didn't realize you were still there, and that was not Alex's fault. That was mine. Jewel, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Yes. Good morning. I was listening, and of course, I'm always praying for the best. And quite frankly, with everything being so high, expensive, there has to be some programs to subsidize these rents. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people are struggling, working, and they can't afford to have a decent place. And they have children, and everything across the board is just skyrocketed expensive. I mean, everybody's not rich. So there has to be some midway for the people, of citizens of America, to survive. You understand? And that alone makes it very critical for everybody that wakes up in the morning trying to figure out how they're going to straighten out their bills, how they're going to make ends meet. I'm one of them, Santita. And I appreciate your show. You understand? Because this way we can iron out these things and try to get to some results. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I was saying. Well, you know what? And I love you, Jewel, and appreciate you. Your support means everything. I mean, because the thing is, I think that's why I was saying the hearings ought to be on all of the networks, not just one, if they're led by the GOP or the Democrats. I'm tired of that. I am so over that. I mean, because I think, because it's all a mess. I'm just tired of it. Just tell us what you know about everybody. Let me make my own decisions. Because now they're bringing up Clarence Thomas and hanging out with the billionaires. Now you're seeing what's been happening in the Supreme Court. This is not new. Now you just see the corruption and the rot there. Root it out. And they should not oversee themselves. Shame on that. Shame on them for that. And shame on us for allowing it.
Oversight.
Just ridiculous. Not just oversight. Some of these people need to be impeached, which is an indictment, and then kicked out. Something needs to happen. This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Some of these people have unambiguously committed acts of treason, which has a much harsher punishment under American law than losing your job.
Absolutely. I mean, but the only people who get indicted for treason are people on the left. I mean, just look. There's treasonous behavior. Then you've got the biggest spy in history who's done the most damage to us, who's allowed to walk free, Robert Pollard. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. And so everybody looks at the system and they just see the rot in it, and they're sick of it, Max, and Dwight and Robert Patillo. I mean, I'm tired of it. My grandmother, before she died, she just shook her head. My grandmother Gertrude, and this is someone who lived in the Jim Crow South. She was a migrant worker throughout the Caribbean in her youth. I mean, she lived a hard life, and she was able to work her way up. She and her husband. That's what she did. But she said, "Now I'm just wondering. I'm wondering about voting now. What's the point?" She said, "There's just so much corruption here." And she was looking at my father. She said, "Reverend," she said, "Jesse, you can't give up." But goodness gracious, she said the corruption. She just shook her head. She would look at the news all day, and she would read all these papers: the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post. She stayed at my parents' house in Washington. The New York Times, anything she could get her hands on, she was reading literally every day, every single day. And she was disgusted by it all. Yeah. Never will forget that. I can't forget that as I think about my grandmother today. I can't. But stay right there, Jewel, because I want you to be part of this. Dwight and Robert, no, stay right there, sweetie. Dwight, what's your response to what you heard Dr. Wolf say and just what we've been talking about today?
Well, let me respond to the sister 1st. Is the only one that's really advocating for the poor is Dr. West, and at a major level, and he can't get traction and be perceived as a legitimate candidate because the system is locked into the status quo, and even those who are advocating for the poor are considered to be outsiders and outlanders and spoilers. And so there are some advocates for the poor. Mary is advocating for the poor, but that she can't get traction. Secondly, what everything Dr. Wolf said about Donald Trump is true and absolutely correct. But it seems to me that maybe I was living in another country, but he still was the president of the United States. With all of that, he was the president, which is the highest place you can get on the planet. Even with all of that, every 50-story building east of the river in New York is named after him. Every 50-story building from 51st all the way down to about 61st is named after Donald Trump. And with all of that corruption and all whatever he is, with all of that, he still had the number one show on NBC. So somebody is seeing all of that vice and all that corruption as a virtue. And they betted on him, they bet the store on him, and they vote for him, and they adore him, and they will do anything they can to make sure he maintains his position of power. So what does that say about the country? That it either is ignorant or is corrupt as he is. Which whenever it is, I guess you got to figure out for yourself. But again, when you look at Biden's history, if you really understand political implications, it's not that much better to me, particularly if it's held to be true that much of these wars that he's involved in is influenced by corruption. And so to me, here's why I leave it, is that Bush had the Iraqi war was manufactured, built on lies and corruption, and confused the public with it. The Vietnam War was built on the Gulf of Tungsten, which was the same, was lies and corruption and deceit. One was Republican, the other was Democrat. In both situations, millions of people died for no apparent reason other than money and economy. What is the difference?
Well, Tracy Lewis said Fox, MSNBC, and NBC and CNN, are corporations. You're right. According to the Republican SCOTUS, corporations are people so they can show whatever they want. Actually, it's not Republicans who did that. That was something that was put in notes, quite honestly, in a Supreme Court decision more than 100 years ago. So that was never something, that's something that eventually SCOTUS agreed upon, but it was never anything that they actually ruled upon. Interesting. She said, turn on C-SPAN if you want to see all of the bogus GOP hearings. Well, our thing is, look, then CNN, MSNBC, and Fox need to tell you, we are not the press. We're media companies, and we give a certain point of view. That's all I'm saying. But the thing is, don't act like you're functioning in the public interest when you're not, because that's a lie. And you ought to be sick of that. It's a lie. It is a lie. And I'm telling you, because I've got 60 years of skin in this game. My parents didn't march with Dr. King. They worked for him for $75 a week that they had to raise. And they saw the media, the New York Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, Tribune, and all these papers used as organs that helped to set the climate for the killing of Dr. King's popularity, which set the climate for his assassination. Seen it happen. This is what happens. So pardon me when I look at all of this stuff, not with a jaundiced eye, but I understand what you do and how you do what you do and the games that you play. I know that Phil Donahue had the #1 show on MSNBC and it was ascended. It was growing, growing, growing. But he got thrown off the air because he was anti-war as we were trying to invade Iraq. Just tell me who you are. If you tell me who you are, I'm NBC. So, MSNBC, NBC, I'm a weapons maker. I'm into war. That's how I make my money. If that's what, just tell me that. Don't sit up here and violate the social contract you have by calling yourself media or the press, and you lie to me and you give me a certain point of view and you color my thoughts. You ought to be sick of that. You ought to be tired of being propagandized and manipulated that way. You ought to be tired of it. I don't mind you. I don't mind you being who you are, Jewel. Just tell me. Just tell me. It's like dealing with a man. Baby, I know when I go into a relationship, I am not going to change you, and I'm not going to try. All I want to know is who you are, and then I decide whether I can live with you or not. My father told me that. He said, look for someone who is drug-free, capacity for hard work, capacity for loyalty. I said, that's it. He said, if you get those things, you got a whole lot. He said, after that, it's all what you can tolerate. And that's true.
Put God first. Put God first.
Yeah, obviously.
Put God first.
Put God first. And, and God means a whole lot of different things to us because we got a mismatch here. But I'm just saying, okay? So I'm just saying, just tell me who you are, or at least tell people who you are.
I'm inspired by that. I'm highly pro-corruption. Just wanted to get that out there.
I don't know.
As long as it benefits me. Otherwise, I think it's highly immoral.
I look out for the least of these because it's sad. You turn on the news, you see all that's going on. I don't know who could take that and don't pray to God. Amen. Come on.
Well, I just know that more and more Americans do not trust the system, and that is a dangerous place for us to be, Max and Dwight. Robert, are you still there?
Very dangerous.
He might be gone by now.
You have to add also heavily armed and no access to mental health care.
Yeah.
It's a great cocktail.
And these people, let me tell you something. These people aren't, for the most part, crazy. They're angry. I'm not going to, you know what? I let crazy be crazy. Okay. I let mental illness be a mental illness. I've got a brother who's bipolar. I mean, if I had children, I might have that because that's something that runs in families. I get it. I'm not mad at anybody. So I know the difference between people.
That's all right.
No, it's all right. But I'm simply saying, I know the difference between mental illness and people who just mean. Some people are evil and mean, right. Max. And we just need to let and anger but anger and hatred and all this misogyny and racism, et cetera, is going to mess you up. And I'm being very nice because I'm on the radio, but it's going to mess you up. It's going to mess you up. It's not going to make you crazy, but it's going to make you even more mean, which will mess you up in the head.
Collectively true too for a country.
But absolutely. But these folks are just mean. Who lynches people? Hangs them at your front door and dares the family to take the body down. Who does that?
My Lord.
Are you serious? We did that here, Max, in America. Who gets a pregnant woman as an after church activity? You hang her up, you lynch her, and you cut the baby out, and then you smash the baby with the bricks. Who does that? You aren't mentally ill. You're just mean, evil, and weak and wicked. And that's what you need. And you need God, honey. That's what you need.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not going to let people get away with being crazy. These people aren't crazy. Oh, they're mentally ill. No. Mentally ill people hurt themselves. Mean people hurt other people. And you have a lot of mean, evil, wicked people out here, and they are not being called out on their evil, mean-spiritedness. And they need to be called out. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
That's right.
My brother will not hurt me. He'll hurt himself. I know people who struggle with mental illness and they hurt themselves. They don't hurt other people. They need to stop that lie. People are just mean. And it's like they glory in it. And they glory in it, Jewel and Max and Dwight. They just glory in it. And it needs to stop.
That's right. Hallelujah, it needs to stop. It shouldn't have started in the first place.
But, go back to Adam and Eve. With that type of stuff. They I got it. But that having been said, I'm not going to let you get away with that. Oh, well, no, mentally ill. If someone else has another mass shooting and they say, we've got to deal with mental illness, no, you need to deal with the fact that you're just mean, evil, and wicked and nasty. And you think that because you've had a bad day, you have the right to take my life from me.
No way, no way, no way, no way, no way, no way.
Mm-mm. And somebody needs to call these people out on it. Call them out. You got a lot of sick people here, sick and mean. The people who killed Emmett Till were not mentally ill, Max, Dwight, and Jewel, Morning Stars. They were evil and wicked. And they have never told us what they did to that boy. And because he was accused of a sexual crime, you don't think that they violated him? These people heard him screaming from that barn all night long. Only God knows how they violated him. They could only identify him having gone through the river, the Mississippi, trying to find him because they kept finding black bodies, but it wasn't Emmett. And then they said, oh, well, wait a minute, there's a ring here. Oh, his father, who was also lynched, who was a WW2 veteran. They said, this is a ring. Oh, that's how they identified him. They identified him by the ring. Then they wouldn't let his mama bring the body home. So she had to wink, nod, lie, and say, no, I won't open the casket. Just let me bring my baby home, please.
Try.
No. Jesus. No. I'm not going to let Carolyn Bryant be mentally ill. No. She was evil. I'm not going to let Mr. Milam and Mr. Bryant be mean. I'm not going to let them be ill. They're evil. I'm not going to let Byron Della Beckwith, who killed Emmett Till in front of Medgar Evers in front of his wife and babies. I am not going to let you call him mentally ill. He was a mean man. And his mean-spiritedness made him wicked, and it perverted his humanity. I'm not going to let you be mentally ill. You just mean. And you need a healthy dose of God. That's what you need. Sick of it. Giving people all these excuses just to be evil. Oh, no, you're evil. Hitler was not mentally ill. He was evil.
Well, let me say this, Santita, if I may. God didn't make hell for the mentally ill.
Hello. Well, how about that?
God didn't make hell for the mentally ill. God made hell for the wicked. There is a such thing as wicked.
And what is wicked?
And there is such a place for the wicked. That's twisted humanity. That's what the word literally means, is twisted humanity.
Okay.
Wicker. It comes from the root word wicker,
absolutely,
which means twisted.
And that's what they are, Dwight. And that's what they are, Max. And that's what they are, Jewel.
Sad but true.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm not going to let these people get away with, oh, my goodness, well, they're mentally ill. No. These Michigan parents knew that their child was, they helped him buy guns. The teachers went to the parents and said, hey, your child's got a problem. He's threatening to kill people. And the parents laughed about it. They said, oh, son, it's just whatever you can get away with. And then he went to the school and killed his classmates. No, that's wicked. They ain't crazy. You mentally, no, you ain't mentally ill. You wicked.
And Santita, on the point, sorry, I went to go take the trash out and came back to a very intense conversation. This is Robert. But you notice they never talk about mental illness when you're talking about a shooting on the south side of Chicago.
Ever.
Or when it's, the Vice Lords versus the Bloods or something like that. They never talk about mental illness in the black community. They never say that, well, the reason we have all this crime is because of post-traumatic slave disorder or for the lack of proper food and education, all those things.
Lead pipes.
Mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah, mental illness only applies to Timmy and Tucker when they shoot up the school, something like that. When it's black folks, it's just simply a character issue which is endemic within their race, and therefore they need to be controlled. No one ever says, well, we need mass incarceration to deal with school shootings. No one ever says we need stop and frisk and racial profiling, that we need to start finding disaffected white youth and start patting them down, etc. It's about this conceptualization. Yeah, it's this idea of who actually gets full rights in America. We say the 3/5 compromise has been repealed, but the way America treats black folks is very much still in vogue and in fashion here.
I mean, wait a minute. Ben Franklin despaired of, he came up with the replacement theory. He said, look, we're going to have X number of white people in the United States, but he despaired of America becoming brown and black. Ben Franklin, this ain't new.
Santita, on that point, the only reason we today cannot drive contiguously from the United States to Colombia and be in the same country is because of exactly that replacement theory. After during the Mexican-American War, we invaded Mexico for no apparent reason. We actually occupied Mexico City. We have the opportunity to annex the entirety of the country, not just the southwest of the United States. We had the opportunity to annex all the way down to Central America. And at that time, the Central Americans had just gotten freedom from the Spanish. We could have gone all the way down to Panama and Colombia if we wanted to. But the concern was we would have more Latinos and brown folks from descended from slaves in America than white colonists, and they feared they would be overthrown. That's why we had the Gadsden Purchase in order to cut the border off at the Rio Grande, because they figured that's the amount of land they could reasonably settle and not have rebellions against it. So when we talk about racism being endemic and part of the American ethos, racism and xenophobia and trying to support white supremacy is as fundamental to America as apple pie and baseball.
As apple pie and baseball. Well, what'd you say, Timmy and Tucker? They had a bad day. My goodness, you need to understand their mental health struggles. No, you got some mean kids, and you mean too. You evil. You're wicked. How about that? But some people never want to deal with their wickedness. And we see it on display every day. It is wicked not to feed people. It is wicked not to clothe people. It is wicked not to ensure that people have a floor beneath which they cannot fall. That's wicked. It's evil. And you're going to go to hell for that. And you should. It's not right to treat God's children like this. It's just wrong. Just wrong. And we ought to be over it. Now, that's why I'm trying to have a grown folks conversation here about who we are and what we're doing. Median rent in the United States is $2,000 a month. Who can afford that? What percentage of your income should be your rent, Max?
There are different opinions. Ideally, you want it to be somewhere around 30%. So the government, the CPI estimates use about 30%. So usually you want to keep it below 40%. If you get much above 40%, we would consider you something called house poor or housing poor, which means that you're at risk of being pushed into a poverty situation by basically paying your rent, right? Or paying your mortgage if that's what's gotten you in a jam. So you usually want to keep it at or about 1/3 or less of your income, which is not attainable in almost any large U.S. city, let alone attainable for people who get, minimum wage, let alone the median wage. A lot of these studies say, hey, if the average person's wage takes about 30% of it to pay the rent, they're kind of okay, or pay for housing, whether that's mortgage, rent, whatever arrangement there is. If you get much above 40%, it starts to prevent you from doing things like savings, making plans for the future, right? And starts to force you into a very short-term mentality in how you spend and budget.
Okay. So if you pay $2,000 in rent, what should your gross be? Not your net.
$24,000 a year, assuming that you pay the same $2,000 all 12 months, right? So just make the simplifying assumption. Then you'd want to be seeing at least $75,000 a year in income. Okay.
Which most of us.
I think technically, Yeah, 73, if you want to be very technical on the math, but yeah, 73K. Obviously, the medians are more like 57,000. So, there you'd want to be seeing somebody pay a good bit less in total rent, right? You'd want to be seeing them pay under 20,000, a year as opposed to over 24 or 24,000. Also housing costs, just not to be too technical here, they don't just cover rent. So normally they cover utility costs, some insurance costs, and some heating and electricity for air conditioning costs. And so you don't want just the rent, right? You should be spending a third of your income on all your housing. So that's your electric bill, heating, air conditioning, basic internet, and your rent, if that makes sense, which is not, most housing units don't bundle those costs. They're separate. The person has to pay those things separately.
Okay. So most Americans don't make $75,000 a year. So there we are. There we are.
Yes, they're housing poor. By the way, it's also 75,000, on the earners that would have to be increased if there's multiple dependents. If you have an elderly parent living with you, a sibling, children, anything like that, because obviously you need more apartment space. And generally speaking, if you have an elderly parent or a disabled person in the home or children, they earn nothing or they earn substantially less than the prime wage earner in the house would earn.
So here we are. So
cost. What about someone gets sick? You have to pay for medicine. What if a holiday comes? You have extra food to celebrate a holiday, a religious celebration. I mean, there's all kinds of things that will take the extra money from the family. The child needs new shoes. Winter's coming. They'll need new coats, hats.
Yeah. Part of the reason you want to keep below 30% is to have what's called usually a buffer, because ideally you should always have 90 days reserved. Right, so 90 days reserve, just means you can have fully spend whatever you spend in any standard month for 3 consecutive months without, running out of savings or without sort of needing to borrow or sell belongings and stuff like that.
And most Americans are not there. So,
as I used to like to say it until I got in trouble, sell your belongings or someone else, because that's what happens pretty quick. That's what the 90 days is for. Yeah, so you don't want to be selling your stuff or, ideally the neighbor's stuff either. They might want that too.
Thank you, Max. Max, can you come back before Thursday and talk about this rent?
Sure.
Definitely. Because you want to hear about that, don't you? Yes. There
is an interesting study that's come out. It's in Bloomberg today, I think, about Minneapolis, St. Paul, the metro area.
Yes.
They conquered inflation pretty well. I think I sent it to you. They conquered inflation pretty well, and they did something pretty interesting. They did target the cost of rent and housing, as Jewel has pointed out, obviously since it's the largest component of the inflation measure, average consumer spending. And they did it in a very simple way. They built a lot of subsidized housing. And it worked. So they actually, they have been the city that has not had the inflation problem. They didn't solve it by jacking up interest rates and impoverishing people. They found it by making a substantial investment, particularly in St. Paul, but in Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area, in affordable housing, which does tend to work, and it doesn't involve engineering a recession like raising interest rates often does. So I think it's a plan worth looking at, because most of these unaffordable cities also have affordable housing shortages. So it's not just the low-income folks that are being impoverished. New York City, for instance, we have working professionals in New York who make $150,000 a year are mostly house poor. They mostly have to pay more than half of their income. This is a early stage doctor. These are lawyers, doctors, people in finance and medicine. So these are people who have the quote unquote good jobs, who went to the best schools and did well in them, and they cannot afford the rent. And I can tell you, as a person with lots of degrees and a kid in New York City, the other weird thing you have, which is sort of the New York City version of today's inequality, is you have doctors and lawyers struggling to pay rent, living next to a 19-year-old kid whose parents pay their rent, and they have the bigger, nicer apartment than you.
Thank
you. Professor Wolf. Professor Wolf, on that point, I have my stack of degrees, and my wife is a director at a Fortune 500 company, and we live in a nice townhouse in Baltimore, and there are 22 and 23-year-old white kids who live literally 2 houses down from us. And we have no concept how it works. No understanding. They have nicer cars than us. They go on vacations more than us. And it's like we have worked 30, 40 years just to be able to have a semi-comfortable lifestyle. And these kids are like 22, 23 years old because of just the income inequality that exists in America. That you have some people that is just handed to, and other people have to claw their way out of the mud to get there. And this is what's causing a lot of this social strife that we see right now, because the gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting bigger. And what it takes to claw your way out of that is no longer, well, I worked a summer job and I paid for college. Now it is, well, I've mortgaged away the rest of my life in order to get a degree that may or may not get me somewhere 30 years down the line. So you're absolutely correct on this.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you're not going to get out from under. What do they? There was a song that you all wouldn't remember. You're too young. Money's too tight to mention. Remember that, Dwight?
Mm-hmm.
And then ain't nothing going on but the rent. I mean. And then the man who ran for mayor of New York, the rent is just too damn high.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
We're not supposed to be living like that.
That was the whole campaign, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that was his whole campaign.
I felt
it. It's basically just the rent too damn high.
It's just
he was amusing.
And in many ways, it explains. In many ways, it explains gentrification. Is because when you can't afford to pay for your house, you start looking at other houses that you can get at a better price. And so you stay in most of the cities, they've contrived a way to do that, which is called gentrification. Is that now you have to trick these seniors who bought these houses 40, 50, 60 years ago, who don't have much of a mortgage on the house because they've been paying for the house 30, 40, 50 years. Now they become prime in premium. So you raise taxes in such a way as now these people have to give their houses up so that a new generation of young people who could not otherwise be able to afford to live in the city now have a way to live in the city. And so the implications for that are so profound. Also for those many of the people that still live in those houses whose young people can't afford to pay the ancillary stuff beyond rent. The car note, some of the food, the clothes. Many of them are reduced to being able to reduce to selling drugs on the corner to subsidize the family income. And they end up in jail and part of the prison industrial complex. And so it's beyond just not being able to pay rent. There is a whole sociological implication that leads into inner city destruction, which is kind of what you're looking at now around the country, that those excessive housing bills create in a de facto sense. It's a consequence of that reality, that it's an unseen consequence of that reality that nobody's really dealing with at the policy level.
It happens on the business side, too, because if the local rents shoot up, the small and family businesses in the community, they can't afford the rents. So you end up with chains, and chains don't pay very high wages, and chains don't tend to leave the profits in the community. So you end up having a situation, New York is famous for this, where you might have a family business, might even be pretty popular, but if its clientele isn't wealthy, they can't pass along the rent increases. And a small storefront in Manhattan easily costs you $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month. If you're selling coffees for $2, you make $1 profit and you pay $50,000 a month in rent. The first 50,000 cups of coffee, the money all goes to the landlord, not you. And even in big cities, a lot of people like coffee. Hard to sell that many cups of coffee. So they go and a chain comes in. The chain pays a bit above minimum wage often, and whatever profits it's going to generate, assuming that it is profitable, those are going to be taken out and distributed through normal public company channels. So it also affects the businesses. So yeah, for sure, 100% agree, affects the people. but it also affects the businesses, right? And you see it in neighborhoods in New York. I'm sure this is true elsewhere too, where you have a public housing project that stays with subsidized rent, but it's $7 across the street to get your organic mocha latte. And you kind of wonder how this is going to work because they haven't been raising the incomes of the folks living in the housing projects enough to pay for anything of what's left in the neighborhood, right?
Exactly.
Everything around you becomes tantalizing and unaffordable. And if you put a young person with limited prospects around a lot of wealthy people buying stuff that she or he reasonably wants, which looks interesting, and they can't afford any of it, I don't know if you need to be a genius social engineer to begin to suspect that you're going to have some negative outcomes.
Yeah, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that.
Well, people are feeling it.
I don't think you need the advanced training for that one.
You know what? People are feeling it. Even if they cannot articulate it, they are.
But that's the problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the problem with social media and AI. Yeah. Disinforming the average person has become very cheap and easy. Facebook allows you to deliver intimate messages of falsehood to anyone at scale all the time. And a decent artificial intelligence will customize bullshit stories to them, if you forgive the language, BS stories to them that fit their exact algorithmic preference and flood them with them every day. And that is part of what's going on politically here, right? The cost of disinformation is approximately zero. And that's part of the reason why we have so many disinformed people.
But the disinformation campaigns are not new. I mean, coming out of the civil rights movement, Max.
But they're more efficient.
No, they're more efficient.
Much more efficient.
But they worked on Dr. King. It got him killed. we know how to do that.
But that still had to be a lot of human effort. You can't just have an algorithm set to do it, right? You have to actually roll up your sleeves.
Now it's Instamatic, but that was a different world. It's scale it back to that time. That's how it worked, right? You got a paper in the morning, you got a paper in the afternoon, or mid-afternoon, and then at the end of the day. So, it's stop playing the games. That's what I'm
now you all get a different paper.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to have hearings, they're not GOP or Republican hearings. They might be led by different parties, but the American public deserve to hear everything that's being put out there as information. So, and then you get the experts, not commentators, I'm sick of them too, because they don't predict anything correctly. Then affirm or refute what you've heard or what we've been told. That's all. Because I don't trust any of them.
Absolutely.
I don't trust any of them. I saw the New York Times lie on Reverend. This was in 92 at the 92 convention. I remember we got a call from he was soon to be Congressman Harold Ford. He said, "Oh, Mrs. Jackson," because the Democrats have always played games on us. This was the first time Reverend hadn't run in 8 years, so he was supposed to be speaking. I think at 7:00. Harold calls half out of his mind. He was like, "You got to get over here." This is in New York City. Okay. Fortunately, we were not that far from Madison Square Garden. He said, "You got to get over here quickly because they're about to call Reverend up." They were going to call him up like 45 minutes early. And if you called him and he missed it, he would have missed his opportunity to speak. Okay. This is a man who reshaped the party, who brought more than 10 million voters to you. This is what you do to him. Okay. And as he's walking off of the platform, Senator Bill Bradley apologizes to Reverend, and my father looked at him and he said, "Bill, what's going on?" He said, "You haven't seen the New York Times." The New York Times had already written a story about his speech and how poorly it had been received. They lied. I'm not telling you something I have figured out. It's something I know, something I've lived. And I get on this air with you to share these things with you every day because I have been in the room. I know how this thing works, and we need to be tired of it. Whatever you say about Robert Kennedy, he's been in the room. He's lived it. He knows this thing. He knows it ain't got nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. He knows that his father walked into a room because he followed him in there and called the CIA and said, not the Republicans, not the Democrats. He said, "Did you all kill my brother? Did you do it?"
Wow.
Then he called the FBI. He was sitting there. "Did you do it?" And then you want to clown him? As if he didn't turn around 4.5 years later and watch his father get blown away. What? And then you want to deny him Secret Service protection now? I'm not making an argument for him. I'm just talking about being fair. Stop playing this game. Stop playing with people. 7 million more people are not going to eat today because we've watched hunger rise by 35% in America in a year. Y'all ought to be sick of that. I don't want to hear what y'all got to say. Not the panel. I don't want to hear all that. You can disagree with me on what you think my politics are. You haven't talked to me long enough to know what my politics are. You have no idea. You ain't seen the things I've seen. Dwight is one of the few people I can talk to about this stuff because we have seen some things. Have we not, Dwight?
Yes, ma'am.
We've seen some things. Dr. King
ain't all been pretty either.
Ain't been pretty. You knew Fred Hampton. And when he was when Bobby Rush, who escaped the killing by the Chicago police and the FBI, Dwight was one of the 2 or 3 people who literally went out in the streets looking for Bobby Rush, trying to stay ahead of the FBI. Because they were going to kill Bobby Rush. And Bobby Rush surrendered at my parents' apartment. They put him in the back of a car, in a trunk, and then drove him to our Saturday morning forum so he could surrender to the police before about 3,000 or 4,000 people. Y'all, please. So when my brother runs for Congress and he says, I've been in the room, baby, my father took us so we could see how this system works. And to help you to work it so it does not work you to death.
Amen.
So do not come to me with some partisan nonsense. Because none of these people have done right by you. Too many people are hungry in America. Too many people can't get educated. Too many people cannot be actualized. You don't treat God's children this way.
All colors. All colors.
It's always been all colors. Because the game has never been for white folks to be included in the prosperity in America. The founding fathers didn't believe in that. They were rich men who the oligarchs were fighting the monarchs. That's all. And the oligarchy won over the monarchy. That's it. And now the new monarchy in America is oligarchy. You ought to be tired of that. You ought to be tired. Whew. So, hey, everybody. You ought to be, you ought to want to go another way. I love you too, Laura. You gotta go another way. You gotta go another way. You gotta go the right way, not just another way. Go the right way. My grandma Helen, my grandma Gertrude said, there is one way. There's the right way. And she would say that all, and Dwight, you knew her.
Said, do the right thing.
That's it. She kept saying that more and more before she died, before she got out of here. And she would just turn from the TV or whatever she was doing, and she'd look at us before we walk out of the house. She said, remember, there's one way. There's the right way.
Yes.
There's one way. Jewel, I'm going to give you a minute to give some closing thoughts because I want everybody to give their closing thoughts before I get out of here and we run today. What your closing thoughts, Jewel?
My closing thought, of course, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that how much I appreciate you and your show. It's just, it's the best experience to start every day to hear your voice. I want you to hug and kiss your parents for us over here at the Wall family because we're keeping hope alive. We'll discuss some other things later. Yes, and have a wonderful day. Blessings about.
Okay, now I want you to take care of that breathing today, okay?
No, I'm just so excited. No,
but just
be on the air with you.
I love you to take care of that. Take care of that.
Yeah.
Take care of that. Dr. Wolf, I know you're running. I don't know if you've already had the jet, but Dr. Wolf, your closing
I'm
thoughts?
still here.
Okay, because I know you've had something.
Unfortunately for everyone, I'm still here.
We love you.
I also, I have another one. I also appreciate the chance to learn something from the guests and the callers and be part of the conversation. I do think that the inflation debate will give way coming forward into a debate about affordability. And I do think there's a value in talking more about affordability and less about inflation. So I hope to explore that going forward in some of the conversations to come.
Well, let's do that. I'm going to have you come on and talk about rent. Everybody wants to talk about rent. So let me know what your schedule is like over the next few days. I've got to talk about this fight that we have at Loretto Hospital, which is being mirrored all over the country. Going to be talking about that tomorrow. But Robert Patillo, are you still there, sweetie?
I am indeed.
Whew, your thoughts?
my thoughts is while we're having this conversation about what we plebiscites are doing at the bottom of the economy and simply trying to pay rent and get by, that our good friend and titan of the judiciary, Clarence Thomas, it was reported that he has taken, trips to the Bahamas, trips to Jamaica, trips to exclusive golf resorts, 36 destination vacations, 26 private jet flights, plus 8 other helicopter trips, a dozen VIP passes to pro and college events, 2 luxury stays in Florida, Jamaica, and a standing invitation to an Uber exclusive golf club overlooking the Atlantic coast. Our system is fundamentally broken, and it's time for us to fix it.
ProPublica, thank you for that report. I mean, wait a minute, but he said, wait, and don't forget the RV. Wait. Robert.
And then there's this concept in law called the appearance of impropriety. Oh. This isn't even the appearance of impropriety. This is just impropriety. And if anyone else did this, if you were in front of a traffic court judge and you found out that they had taken this many gifts from people that had business in front of them, they would be thrown off of traffic court. But because it's the Supreme Court and because the way our system operates, the mask is coming off of the system. And I think people are realizing what we're really living within.
And you know what? And don't tell me they're going after Clarence Thomas because he's Black. Please. Stop. He's just wrong, y'all. That's it. And are the rules a little different for Black people? Of course, but he's wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong. And he's dangerous. Dwight McKee.
And he was put there by Joe Biden. And that's why it really comes down to, and it comes down to people of goodwill. It really comes down to the basics. Is that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your neighbor as yourself. It really comes down to the essentials. Is not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. Most of this is a character issue. Most of it is an issue of integrity and empathy and moral fortitude. You know, it's really fundamental. Much of this is. It's not political. It's not party-based. It's character-based. It's, it's men being the best who God has called them to be, and to feel accountable for yourself and your neighbor.
Everybody, this is not about color. This is about kind. Get over what people look like, where they come from, religion, gender. Get over that. Let's get to character. How about that? Stay right there. Stay right there. How about integrity that a corporation is supposed to have? If they make their money off of you, they have responsibilities to you. Your government has a responsibility to you. And you have got to know that it's all your skin in the game. All these people work for you. And without you, they can't work. Come on, y'all. Wake up, grow up. If you want a monarchy, then give it to everybody else so they can own all the land. You can have bad teeth, have a little bit of access to a hospital. You can be told you can have, after 2 kids, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for the hospital, say all that, okay? Because that's the UK. Because whatever you say about Harry, Meghan, and William and Kate, they are still part of the wealthiest family on earth. So wealthy that we dare not mention it. Their grandmama owned 1/6 of the land mass on earth. At one time, conservative estimates put her wealth at more than $33 trillion. That little lady with the matching purse and hat, and that, yeah, all of that, yeah. While people freak out because Biden actually steadied himself on another human being called King Charles. You're not supposed to touch him. Dwight, was that hilarious? Y'all, was that crazy?
To me.
You can't touch him. Why not? What? God bless the British. I mean, I am so glad we had that revolution because I'm not playing that. But we kind of do that with celebrities now until you make an American really angry. And that's what I love about being an American. So, y'all, come on. Let's grow up in our politics. Get registered to vote. Let the power structure know that you exist and you are awake. I didn't say woke, I said awake. And that you're watching them. Robert Patillo, you are right. We're seeing the rot in the system. That's all we're seeing now. Ain't none of this new. It's just the rot has been here. Now it's up front. So now what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Is it acceptable to you for Clarence Thomas to be on the Supreme Court? And Alito and all of these other justices who take, hey, I will say, I look at Ketanji Brown Jackson and said, oh, I wish she had voted I was kind of torn, to be honest with you, about her stance on affirmative action, but on principle, I understood and appreciated and respected and supported her decision. She said, no, I'm walking a fine line, but I got to walk it. These people are corrupt. And the billionaires who sponsor Alito and Thomas and everybody else, they might not have business before the court, at least that we can see, but their friends do. And they're probably invested in those corporations. They have business before the court, and the court rules in their favor. This is the most business-friendly court that we've had in 100 years. You ought to be sick of that. It doesn't favor you. It favors corporations who continue to suck you dry. And corporations aren't bad, but they're behaving badly. You ought to be sick of it. And you ought to restructure a system that disfavors you. Boom. I love you. I love all of you. I love you, Dwight. I love you, Max Wolf. I love you, Jewel. I love you, Robert Patillo. I love y'all. Who love you, love you, love you. So I'm out of here, everybody. Remember, 17-year-olds in 2024, if they're going to be 18 by November, whatever the election day in November of 2024 is, if they're going to be 18 by that date, they can vote in the primary season. Let them know that. We ought to be pushing all of our schools. I don't care if you register as a Republican or Democrat. I really don't care. All of our children, as part of their maturation, ought to be given the option to register to vote. We need to demand that. That's the law in Texas. It's just not enforced. You're supposed to register kids to vote. They just don't enforce the law. Think about it, y'all. Think about it. I love you. I love everybody here, and I love all of you. And so, everybody, come on. What'd you say? Grab some hotcakes. Grab this boiled egg that I've got over here. My mother gave me about 8 of them. She knows I love boiled eggs. But I love you all, and God bless you. And I will, Lord willing, see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about the state of our hospitals. How is it that a country that has 330 to 340 million people has 920,000 hospital beds? Yeah, I didn't say in one city, in one country. We build bombs, we just don't build hospitals. Oops. Did I say that? Okay. Love y'all. Love you all and have a great one. Shalom and peace, and may God be with you till we meet again.